copies?
I got an agenda.
Yeah. Oh,
This
you
is
don't
a work
have the
session.
one, the packet?
No, I don't.
Thanks.
Good, Mike. Everybody?
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good.
Summer. Too quick. Slow to come with all that rain, you know, and the kind of cold weather. And then,
Remember when it used to rain here?
Yeah, imagine that.
yeah.
So that's so much of the beginning here.
Yeah.
How's it going, Mike?
Pretty good, thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Thank you.
Is your first official meeting?
This is my first.
That one you were really.
Yeah, I just
getting started.
here.
You know what?
Really,
You guys on vacation all summer.
pretty much.
It was this year, I compare it back just a little bit, I felt like there wasn't a lot of things to talk about. But I think it was January, instead of February 1, 4 actual meetings this year.
I know, you guys canceled the last one, right? Yeah, Big Island.
Oh, that was a work session. But yeah, we only have 4 real meetings now. We had our August meeting. Yeah. That was our last one. Yeah, July was the work session that we were gonna, or June or July, we were gonna go to Big Island. It was a storm. It was a storm, yeah.
I think there's lots to talk about.
There's always plenty to talk about. I think that's Taylor. The garden do this year.
Good.
Suppose all
not
that
done
water,
yet.
all the water up front probably helped quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, I think it really helped at the golf course too, pretty much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've only watered twice, I think. So, they're pretty well mulched and composted, so it reminds a lot of water in.
You can retain it.
Hmm?
You can retain it. Retain that.
Yeah, yeah, helps a lot.
Good. All right. Well, this might be it.
Who left?
Jersey
Oh,
resigned. We had 2 medical things come up this week, so Rick and Jan can't be here. And I haven't heard from Sandy, and Gordy, at last minute, said he couldn't be here today too, so.
oh.
So yeah, so it's just the 3 of us tonight.
Are you gonna be okay? The medicals?
Well, I don't know, HIPAA can't say, but
Well, no, but
Rick has COVID, so.
it's going around for sure.
Yeah.
At the schools, big time, I guess.
Is it?
Don't go to school.
Dan had a more serious fall,
Oh, no.
so. Yeah, but, okay, so we've got a couple of things to talk about tonight. Work session. I just wanted to give Taylor the opportunity to talk about himself. And not just him, it's not just all about you.
No.
It's all also about the staff.
Yep.
And because there's been some good, positive things that are happening there. The staff is at a much different place right now than they've ever been, which impacts us and what we can do, obviously. So
For sure. Love to hear your perception of the parks coming in too. Just,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, it's great.
Your initial reaction.
Perfect. Well, I kind of had the opportunity to introduce myself at the last Park Commission meeting. But Taylor Zinnel, I'm originally from Minnesota, real small agricultural town in South Central, where I quickly fell in love with the game of golf because there's not much to do in rural Minnesota. And so that's kind of what got me into turf. and working outside. I have spent the last almost 20 years in the golf business, working at my home course out east on Long Island at Bethpage, which they'll have the Ryder Cup next year. So hopefully get a chance to.
Out there?
You better believe if they accept me, I'll go. And then most recently, 11 years here at Interlochen Country Club. So ultimately, through that whole process, just really developed a passion for creating great experiences and ultimately creating, great places for people to make memories. And so I found a cool transition to come here to the city of Orono to try to help provide those services here in the parks and at the golf course, and then also in the facility. So just I come with a high attention to detail. I try to look at all the little things that go into the big picture that oftentimes make big impacts without necessarily turning the dial or spending like a bunch of money. So those are things that I'm instilling in my team, like Brian had alluded to. My team's pretty fresh here as well. So I've been here for about 2 months. Julia is our longest standing member, besides Kim at the golf course, who's the golf course manager. So Julia's been here for about 9 months. And then I have Greg, who he's kind of running the golf course. That's kind of his focus. I actually worked with Greg at Interlochen for about 6 years, so he has me as a boss again. But great relationship there. He's been here since mid to late May. And then my last individual on my team, Mitch, he's worked for the city of Owatonna in Parks District, so he's my parks guy. So he's out there kind of surveying and doing projects out there on the parks. He's been here since June, so he was kind of here that last few weeks while Josh was here. Ultimately, just trying to grow and develop, figure out their skill sets, and figure out where we can find growth in those individuals and help the team here at Orono, as well as my great team. My side team with Public Works, who have been great to work with and are always willing to give me a little helping hand to figure out sort of the nuances of Orono here. So, yes.
Yeah, quick question. Were those all open or new positions, or did somebody leave?
No, let me give you a little background. So remember Josh he hired Jack to come on. So when Josh first started here, he was very focused on the golf course, but he also was split between golf and the rest of the parks. And then he was able to hire Jack, and that relieved him from a lot of the day-to-day golf course stuff. And he was able to oversee all the parks, and Jack kind of focused on the golf course. Well, then last spring, Jack left. And then Josh was able to hire Greg.
Correct.
And soon after Greg was hired, Jack resigned. And so Greg moved from kind of the parks, general parks, over to focus on golf course. And then there was a new new position opened for Mitch to do all the golf course. So the point is that never before have we had this organization in place for parks, either because there's been turnover at the time or because at least one of these positions was just added this year. And then that's on top of Kim, who is now full-time, and that position was added last year, right?
Yep, I believe so.
Last year.
I believe so.
Full-time year-round?
Yep.
Yeah, she came on as seasonal,
I believe so.
and then was approved to do full-time. So she has some other non-golf course responsibilities as well for the city. So I think that's all exciting, all the the people, so Taylor has been a great job. I can't believe you've only been here for 2 months. But he picked up, Josh had a lot of stuff up in the air when he left, and Taylor was able to pick up a lot of this and hit the ground running. Partly because of the staff that he has, the team that he now has to rely on. So.
Yeah, it's great to have that support staff, just being responsible for all the facilities here in Orono, all the parks, and then the golf course as well. Just to have, umbrella of people with different skill sets to kind of relieve me from, being out in the field or doing things each and every day. It allows me to kind of look big picture, focus on, the task that the Park Commission puts onto me to try to, continue looking for opportunities for growth and, really just developing sound plans to be more efficient and know where we're going here in future years.
So the third supervisor that you talked about, Julia, remember Josh also took over facilities. And so Julia is the facilities person that really doesn't have much to do with the parks.
What would be an example of facilities? What do you mean by that?
This building.
Oh, really?
That
Police department, fire department, new public
Josh
works.
and all that?
Yeah, maintenance.
Yeah, it's overwhelming, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So, that's probably the one thing I have the least amount of skill sets in, so it's a lot of, understanding all the systems and things that are in place and.
He's going tomorrow to look at floor cleaners.
Yep, that floor cleaners. Big umbrella, so. But yeah, just really great challenges for me, and that's why I accepted this position, is that I knew it would challenge me and ultimately give me a lot of really good skill sets, to become an even better professional. So
Yeah, I guess I was just searching a little bit. Challenges can be reasons for leaving, and if there's a huge turnover here as a result of challenges,
Yep.
I mean, we got to be careful of that too. So
absolutely.
we don't push it too far or hard, and you have to end up going somewhere else.
Yep.
So
That's fair.
yeah,
Absolutely. Well, I hope to treat my team well, give them the opportunities they want to shrink down on that, but ultimately, I'd love to see, the individuals on my team, elevate and find, their dream job as well.
yeah. And I hope you feel like you have support coming from this group.
Absolutely.
Park Commission. If there's anything we can do, we don't work for us obviously, but if we can be a sounding board or one-on-one or any kind of thing that goes on, don't hesitate to lean on us a little bit too. To
Absolutely.
make sure it's okay for you.
Yep.
Last thing we want is to have to do that again.
Yeah, do this. Yeah,
Because you're pretty lucky to find someone with your background to take that job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything else, Taylor? Or you guys? Oh, you had a question.
How are your perception of the parks and the facilities? What facilities? How the parks and as you go around and see what's going on in the golf course or what's
Yeah, the biggest thing is, just trying to figure out how parks are used. My community in New Hope, the local park is, frequented, and, I don't see a lot of that here. Trying to just figure out what engages people. There are some areas of parks that are tired, right, and need a little refresh, just presentation-wise. Like benches at Hackberry and things like, just those things. Ultimately, I love the variety of parks here, the nature parks, the established field parks, the playgrounds, those sort of things, and how they provide the community around them. I think that's really great. And just trying to, now my goal is just trying to narrow down, what can I tackle and where can we make incremental improvements that, of course, don't really create much challenge, I guess.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's been for a long time on my mind, and I brought this up with this group before, that this framework about our goals for our parks is, it's kind of loose, right? So you could say the number one goal of parks is to reduce density, because it's parks not being built on. Maybe our number two goal is it attracts people because it's pretty to drive by, right? Maybe the third one is we want people to be active and healthy and engaged, right? And four might be, we want neighborhoods to gather, we want people to spend time with each other. And yet, we don't have any measures of any of those, right? That would require kind of sitting at a park for, a week, watching who comes and goes, and making note of what demographics it might be, what activities are they engaging in, all those kinds of things. And I just, I think we have wonderful parks, and the sad thing is, as an Orono resident for over 30 years, right? I never went to any of the Orono parks. Kids went to Wisconsin. I went a different direction. Never even thought about Orono parks. When I found out through being on this commission what parks are available, I kicked myself because I'm like, how come my kids have never used these parks? How come they never spent time in these parks? And so that, that accessibility piece, that visibility piece, that what draws you to these parks, have all been questions on my mind just because of that experience. So, as you're coming into this and probably asking yourself those same questions, right? Mm-hmm. I think this would be a really good year for us to step back and take some time in a work session and a little whiteboard and say, what are the goals of our parks, and what's the top goal, and how would we self-rate? How do we believe we're doing in those regards? And as commissioners, we come to meetings, we visit our parks, we work on specific projects like new parks, but in terms of engagement and the effective use of our existing parks, collective knowledge, very little. So I just think that we should commit as parks commissioners to be a little more engaged and involved in, answering those questions and taking each of our parks and spending some time in them and in a consistent way reporting back what are we observing,
Yep.
right? So it's something to think about, but it takes some leadership to make that happen.
For sure.
So, you've got a lot on your plate, but I always think that's a better place to start than just getting busy.
Well, we can, so this is a nice transition to the next topic if you want, but the beginning of every year we sit down and make our goals, in the work session, the January work session or whatever. I think that's a great topic to start talking about, and if we collectively want to set that as a goal, is to set, measurements and focuses for the city, we can, let's do
I
that.
think it helps you do your job.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of things you can be focused on.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the year, you're going to look back and say, was it enough? Was it the right things? And when you have big projects going on, it's easy to focus on the big projects. So anyway, and maybe everything's great, but when you said, not sure I see a lot of people in the parks. That's kind of my impression, and that's kind of been my reaction driving by a lot of parks. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But asking the why might influence how we design future parks and how we, prioritize what we're doing for our existing parks. Because if we're not using them, then we are the open space committee.
Yep.
Which to me is different than a parks.
Absolutely.
So,
Can I say something? That's a good point. But what you're missing here is you're not reaching out to the people who live around the parks. I mean, you don't need to sit in a park for a week. You can have a listening session at the park regularly all summer and find out who's playing there. You don't need to. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the citizen piece is a big one, or a survey, professional survey to the residents, as opposed to you guys just deciding what you're seeing after sitting there for a week.
I think that's, like when you talk about adopt a park, when you talk about park sponsors and all that stuff, like, I'm hoping, there's only so many of us, so many resources, and obviously like the family who adopted
Owner? Oh, oh,
They're pickleball friends.
Brian.
I have so many.
Yeah.
Oh, Brian Williams?
Yeah, Brian Williams, they're the adopted park. Like, they're so
Yeah.
passionate that they live in that community, they use that community. Like, we want to have more liaisons, eyes and ears in the community to use it. Makes a big difference to have somebody who is that, kind of voice of their community, that park owner who feels a sense of responsibility for that park.
Right.
So that is something
That's
that
talking to the people, the
Totally.
neighborhood.
and so that's one of my passion projects that we've talked about is how do we get that off the ground in a more meaningful way. If you, Mike and I did a benchmarking about a year ago where we looked at like Edina. There's a wait list for an adopted park in Edina. Like if people want to do this and they're standing in line, I think Orono would probably have a similar level of involvement based on what we've seen in our city if they knew it was an option, if they knew what we were expecting of them and all that fun stuff. So I think, agreed. I would just challenge, there's only so many of us and there's only so much time. And so whether it's adopted park or we dedicate one of these listening sessions to being, telling the community to come talk to us or, some way that it liaisons back up. I agree with our efforts to be able to sit in a park for a week. You're going to see different people at 9 a.m. versus 5 p.m. Different types of parks all over the place.
Well, when you look at Orono parks, they're really different than other cities'
Of
parks.
course.
Because they're like pocket parks in a neighborhood where you probably, like Hackberry is a good example. So, they don't want to get rid of T-ball, but some people say, well, they can play T-ball on a baseball field. But how is that adding a baseball field and then bringing all these teams and parking and all that into this park going to affect the neighborhood or impact? I mean, they're situated really inside neighborhoods.
And that's why I think it's important to step back, even from the individual parks, and you look at them in aggregate, and you say, how well are we serving kids in that T-ball age? How many of those do we have? How are we doing for older adults and passive activities? How are we doing? So you might list the kinds of activities you want to see in your park,
Yep.
and have a broader sense of the collective. Now, people who have been to all of our parks and grew up in Orono and know the park maybe intuitively know that, but when I came on as a brand new Parks Commissioner, I didn't even know where to begin. So I just think it's worthy of us spending some time around that.
So all of us should review is the 2040 comp plan, which did do all of that for all of our parks. It does outline what is the park, what is its purpose, and there's a whole grid in there that we reviewed. Like, these are the different amenities. And like, there are some amenities we have one of at the edge of town and not, like basketball is at Crystal Bay. I guess it's at the bar too, but like, we don't have anything in the north. Is basketball still a sport? Like, we haven't done that level of analysis.
But maybe once a year, that's what leads into the CIP is a review of what were those things. Have any of those changed? Hey, we moved the needle here, we moved the needle there, but we still haven't done anything there. And then, like you say, then find out from the community, what would you want more of?
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to CIP, if that's okay. So again, at the beginning of the year, January, we sit down and we talk about, we make our subcommittees, our work groups, and then we set some goals for those work streams. But first, before we get there, we have to get some direction from the city council and from staff on what we're doing that year. That happens. Those discussions are happening in November, December. At staff level and city council level, and so this really, ideally, this starts in August at our August meeting, where we start to have these conversations about what collectively what our interests are over the next couple of years. Now these are, I would call these aspirations, but this is our tool. This document is our tool to communicate to staff and city what are priorities for us, okay? So the CIP itself is not this document. It has numbers on it, and it's more detailed, and it's more comprehensive. This is the level that we sit at, is kind of, all right, we've got small, medium, large projects, and about, how are we looking for the next 5 years, and when are we, looking to do what? Now, this is, we had a very similar thing last year. I took that and updated, pushed out a couple and whatever, and came up with this, and this is kind of the meat of our discussion today. I want to talk through each of these, and we can make sure we're not missing anything, and we want to, or there's stuff on here we want to take off, or
Is that everything that reads in the bottom?
so we have one-time projects and then kind of routine stuff within the golf courses down below. That's the last of it.
Yep.
Okay, and again, none of these are promises or anything like that. This is, at this point, this is kind of aspirational.
Well, we're
As you
just
can see,
advisory anyway.
what's that?
We're just advisory anyway.
Exactly.
You know,
Yep.
We're just saying, hey, if we were gonna do it, this is what we would do, but each individual thing has to go through its own
Yeah.
approval process.
Exactly. It goes through the approval process, and the other thing that's not, is a variable here, or input here, is like hackberry, right? I mean, it's really a function of when we get grant money too. So we didn't get it last year, and so we pushed it out a year, and maybe we'll get some money this year. So that is also another factor that's obviously absent here, but.
You know, it might be helpful, and I don't know where it fits exactly, but because the use of grants is so important, it would be useful on here to designate in some way if it's grant dependent, right? Because then, as those grant cycles come up, and we, in theory, could have competing projects for the same grant,
Yep.
we also need to prioritize our grants.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, and I realize that the staff, get notified of certain kinds of grants, government grants, but there are other grants outside. And so I think the whole grant process is one that we should think about. What role we play as we look at these projects and saying, how do we research grants and make that a better source of funding, because they are such a big part of things like Hackberry that are entirely, really, honestly dependent.
Yep.
Because we're never gonna have more than, was it $100,000 or $200,000 in the capital improvement budget for the parks in any one year. So any major project.
I mean, at any point, the city could just say, we're just gonna do it. So I wouldn't say it's dependent on the,
The big
but
project.
realistically, the big ones are, you know, we
Yes.
strategically, we kind of want to use some grant money
Yeah,
for it.
and so, you know, the likelihood we'll get a grant, you know, how amenable the powers to be are towards certain kinds of projects. That's also, I think, an important thing, because they seem to follow themes, you know, what the grant writers are looking for in that particular year. So it's almost the inverse of what you think. You think I have a project, we'll find a grant, but knowing what grants are out there for what kind of things might lead to projects, you
Yeah.
know, or being more conscious about trying to take advantage of grant monies, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Right, for our parks.
Okay, so,
a couple things on here for me.
Sorry,
What's MBT?
Mountain Bike Trail.
Golf course?
Mountain Bike Trail.
Oh, got it, thank you. And 106 OCB, what's OCB?
Old Crystal Bay Road.
Old Crystal Bay Road to Willow, so that's the trail that goes from here.
Yep, on County Road 6, just south.
And is there anything still related to cross-country skiing at the golf course, or is that?
Yeah, well, there's one item on the bottom. We can go through the whole thing.
No, you just said something might be missing, and so I think we were just both trying to
Oh,
figure out what
yeah,
was
if you
on.
go down to the bottom, the enabler there are tracks, tracks for
Okay.
the UTV,
Those are
utility.
terrain vehicle.
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah, utility.
Instead of
Just
all
maybe.
three and a half. So it's a side by side, it's a Ranger, it's a.
The city owns a Ranger that the police use, and in the winter, we could use use that if we had tracks for putting golf course or putting.
Hey, first
Trails.
we need some snow.
I know, well, we were
Also, we need a
all
snowman.
geared up for last year, but, what'd you say?
We need a snowmaker on there.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is also dependent on the weather.
Absolutely.
All right, so if you go to the top, I'll just go through these real quick,
Okay.
unless you want to dig into them, but they're pretty straightforward. Most of them are straightforward. So pickleball, I put some shading in there. That just kind of conveys that most of our work is hopefully in 2025 and 2026. The construction may still remain in 2027. And that's just going by, large projects. Adam always says large projects are 3 years. So, but don't get, who knows if we can be done by 2026, great. A refresh of the trails at Lurton.
Can I add something on Lurton, just because it's up there?
Yeah.
I've been there a little bit this summer, and there was the small dog park.
Yeah.
Apparently, small dogs can get through the fence. And so small dog owners are nervous about being in there.
Okay.
So,
That's
since you
just
have it
a
on there,
maintenance thing.
yeah, can you just make a note of that?
Is the parking lot done?
Huh?
I think the parking lot's done already.
We're looking for a representative for Lurton, by the way.
Oh.
Jersey's gone. And all kidding aside, I think that is one of the most important parks to have a representative for.
Yeah, that gets well used.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hackberry, pretty straightforward. I mean, he's submitted the grant request again, and we should hear in December, January, the outcome of the request. Baseball field irrigation, that's just something that we've talked to the Baseball Association about. Beaterwood, it gets burned out very quickly. And we have a pump house there that was restored a couple years ago for the soccer field when that was constructed. And so this is just a matter of installing irrigation to connect to the pump house there.
And a drinking fountain. And a drinking fountain.
He wants a drinking fountain. See, there's scope creep already. Maybe we can move that to midsize.
It's our sport field. We have to have water.
I know.
Brian, is irrigation expensive but small because it would take long to do, or is it also small in terms of cost?
That's mostly represented the cost.
Oh, okay, so the small large is also a cost thing?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
because I have no feel for that.
And again, like, we might have, the Baseball Association, we've talked to them about this, like, they might have money to contribute to that too, so. Antoine Park, we had that outreach a year ago, and they had some good ideas there. That's just kind of on the back burner for right now. Mountain bike trail construction, that's something that Rick has made some progress on over the summer. We think that the golf course, the wooded area of the golf course might be a good spot for that. And so at this point, unfortunately Rick was supposed to be here tonight, so, but he can talk more about it at the November meeting. But he's at the point where we might need a little bit of money to do some design work to see what could possibly happen or could be there. If it moves forward, then it would be kind of a 25, 26 timeframe. The recreational facility, that's just what happens to the old public works building.
Is that empty now, or what is it?
It's fire department.
Oh, it is being used as part of the fire department,
Mhm.
okay.
So that may never be available for us to do anything with, but I wanted to make sure it's out there. The summit, we defined some phase 1 and phase 2 as part of that process. Were you able to?
I was.
Okay, so we're getting Taylor up to speed now to see, I don't even know if any progress was made on those the phase one this year or not?
I do not believe so, no.
I didn't think so.
And that, the, phase one would be, sort of operational costs,
Internal labor.
Exactly. So,
Stuff.
just some small things to kind of enhance it a little bit.
We got the North Arm Trail construction. Did you find, there's a rat up there. Did you figure out what the timing is for that road?
I have not yet.
So just as a reminder real quick, that North Arm Drive is the one that goes around the old Lakeview Golf Course and has the Lakeview, what's it called? Lakeview
Legacy Park.
Thank you.
Okay.
And so we've had an idea for now years about adding a trail that connects, goes down North Arm Drive and connects to that trail, or that park. It's all dependent, the timing is all dependent on when they reconstruct that road, and that keeps getting pushed up too. So if it's still in 2026, great. If not, then it'll just be a function of that. And then, we need to decide if with the timing of this last trail. I have to defer to Rick and staff on whether that's a good use of money in 2026 or whether that can be pushed out or not. So it's just been on there forever too, and so we just keep
pushing it.
Keep pushing back. Dock replacement, I think I don't know if you have a good feel about when we need to do that.
Yeah, so dock replacement, basically every 3 to 4 years, I just have a little bit of money set aside to repair, replace, some of the lake access docks or swimming pads. So, ultimately, a lot of my goal is to kind of plan for things ahead of time. So like mulching a playground, have that already scheduled out ahead of time, just so that we don't regress too much in a certain area. So I'm just trying to figure out, what the best process is and how long things last and those sort of deals. This was already in the CIP when I got it, and I see some value in getting some replacements and maybe some additions to in the future for those lake access. And then various improvements on lake access points, from getting them marked to potential additions of swim pads and things like that.
Again, some of these small ones are kind of placeholders on here just to make sure they're on people's radar, but it's possible that they could be funded with operation money and not go through the CIP process too, but this is, again, our way to communicate to the city council, to staff, what's important to us.
On that subject of sort of maintenance things.
Yes.
I'm blanking on which park we're talking about, which is the park with the soccer field.
Beaterwood, yeah.
So when we looked at Beaterwood for potential pickleball.
Yeah.
I remember one of the things we said might be a factor was that where the playground equipment is now is not ADA compliant.
Yep.
I don't see that on here. Should that be on here?
That probably should be on there.
That would be pretty significant in terms of, it's
all
pretty big. And
Yeah.
all the
the other extremes.
This is one of another passion project.
Yeah, mine was, I think we should create a focus committee on playgrounds and say, what are our playgrounds, when do they need to get updated, all that thing. Josh and I were talking about before he left, he went to some safety training before, and just
yeah.
we need to probably focus on that, something that.
So we could put under routine, we could just put general playground
assessment /
replacement.
Yeah, even, you could even call it compliance, because
Yeah.
it's almost a compliance
All
problem.
the
And so, not at one specific park or not, but
Right,
just across the whole
thing.
system.
Mhm.
Okay, I like it, yeah. In fact, I thought that we used to have that on there. All right, so do you want to take us through the golf course ones? Give him a little break, he's still kind of figuring out what the golf course needs?
Yep. Just in the short time that I've had and talking with Kim, ultimately, the golf course is its own entity. It can't necessarily take funds from the park fund. So ultimately, we want to create a more consistent revenue stream. And I think, one step is providing simple hot dogs and hamburgers to the individuals using the golf course. So I have plans to potentially next year rent a food trailer to be able to provide us with those services.
And it is like a proof of concept.
Exactly. So rent it for 3-4 months just to see what that response is. But I think that's a great opportunity to increase revenue and ultimately a nice amenity for after a round of golf to have a hot dog with your foursome. So that's something we really want to pursue. I know it's been talked about for a number of years, and so I just really want to give that a test and a proof of concept.
We've talked about it as a group for many years, as you guys know, that we explored improvements or upgrades to the kitchen. That seems to be cost prohibitive. We had talked about bringing in trucks and so forth, but then this food trailer is actually not that expensive if we wanted to go down that route, and it's a lot easier to get a trailer than to improve the kitchen, believe it or not. So.
Yeah, so just kind of testing proof of concept, and then once we kind of have that data, deciphering if that's a purchase the city would make. Tracks for the UTV, obviously that opens up a lot of opportunities for groomed ski trails. I've talked to Eric at Woodhill, but ultimately I think if we can eliminate that, certainly if we want a proof of concept and try it, he's willing to help out. But as far as long-term goals and sustaining it ourselves, that's an important piece of the puzzle right there. And so as far as costs, relatively pretty small. I think anywhere from $8 to $10 grand to outfit that UTV with those tracks, and obviously the opportunities that it provides us for maneuvering around in the winter is endless.
But that, and this is, you might want to look into see if the police department or public works could also help fund that too. So I would think that they would have a need for that.
Okay.
Might have a need for those.
Good. And then cart path improvements at the golf course. There's just 1 or 2 areas, notably coming off the 7th tee. That's absolutely terrifying in the condition that it's in. It's more of a safety concern than anything. So,
Is there a cart path?
What's that?
Is there a cart path?
It's dirt. It's dirt, and it's
Which one?
not smooth.
The
Coming off of the 7th tee,
Yeah,
it's
It's always been that way.
it's terrifying. So, just looking into whether it's gravel or asphalt in that area, more so for safety than anything. And then operationally, we would continue to make those refreshes as needed. And then irrigation, it's something that inevitably at some point will need to be addressed. We're kind of just limping along and putting Band-Aids on it at this point. But really the first step there is just getting a comprehensive detailed plan from an irrigation designer. So that's something I'm pursuing this year, and how that looks down the road, I can't really say, just based on, I don't know what the cost is, and then I don't know what, sequencing, picking away a few holes at a time, what that would look like until I get a design put in place. So that's something I'll be pursuing this year, just so that we can then use that information to come up with a more comprehensive plan to replace that system.
Was the golf course able to create any reserves this year out of its profitability?
Very little.
So it was mostly break even again.
I think it was.
It was some machinery.
You know, I think one of the downfalls this year was the amount of rain, and then that held us from letting carts out, and a lot of the clientele use carts, so you know, they just got getting pushed away with that wet weather. So that's another thing I'm looking into is drainage to help get golf course out there or golf carts out there more frequently after rains. But that at this point, that's something that's going to have to come internally and operationally. So.
Well, I think, you know, in the last year, there was kind of a bit of a challenge back to the golfers to say, you know, maybe put together a capital campaign and try to, you know, don't wait until 2027 and then say, oh, we want to do this, but we don't have funding.
Yep.
I think, you know, having those conversations with the golfers now about a 3-year campaign, capital campaign, I think is an important part of that because, you know, they're passionate about the golf course, but, you know, it doesn't really benefit the broader community in the same way that other parks have that opportunity to do. And it's just capital intensive, so kind of
Absolutely.
need that kind of stuff.
Brian,
Yeah.
what's your spread for dollars when you say small? Is it like 1,000, 5,000? You don't know, just
Finger in the air.
small, big, huge?
I would say I'm not a numbers guy, but
Oh, you're not?
that would be a lie. It's just,
It was just, okay.
you know.
I think it's
Perception as much as anything, you know.
What's that?
I mean, it's kind of like perception as much as anything. I perceive
Yeah.
it being smaller than the mid-size, and it's a relative thing as opposed to an absolute measure.
But a big project could be small contribution from the city if we got outside funding too. So that's why I didn't want to get wrapped around that
Okay.
discussion
Well,
for
there's
this
no extra
purpose.
large, right?
There's no extra large, but maybe there should be.
Super size.
Well,
That would be purchasing big island. That was an extra one.
Yeah.
Was there
Sandy, what about the Orono Parks
Yeah.
Legacy? What do they do? Are they raising money? Could they be raising money for some of this?
For what?
Well, so
Orono Parks Legacy.
So Brian's the other person to ask because he's a board member. I'm actually just a volunteer with them. But I mean, I'm happy to give my opinion about it, but.
Yeah. I think we're aligned on.
Yeah,
go
so I think the character of Orono Park's legacy is it provides, one, a legal and tax, you know, favorable structure in which fundraising can occur. That's its number one reason it exists, right? Number two, through its board and its experience, I think it helps people who are interested in running different projects. It's an enabler. Right? It says, oh, you're interested, let's choose the garden. You're interested in doing something with the garden? Sure, you can fundraise through us, right? Us, I'm using us in a general term. Here are things you need to think about when you do your fundraising. This is what we did for this project, and this is what we did for that project. Those might be ways you approach it. You probably, over time, I would think, because it's still a pretty young organization, you develop networks of people who you know do contribute, right? You develop networks of people who know how to put together fundraising materials. So when I think of Orono Park's legacy, is I've related to it for the pickleball project. I see it as an enabler and an oversight to make sure you're not getting out of bounds and doing things that could even be bad for the city, even though it's a separate organization, right? It's got to define the relationship between itself and the city in an appropriate way, so that whatever funds are raised, they flow in the right ways. But to ask that bigger question, which is, could Orono Park's legacy just create a multi-million-dollar, what's the word I'm looking for, that kind of a fund, endowment that then could be utilized for multiple projects? And again, this is my personal opinion, I think Orono's too small.
Yeah.
for it to be something like that, and it's too much in infancy. So I think it tends to turn over its board, the volunteers tend to turn over project by project. That said, yeah, the city cannot go out and fundraise for
Thanks,
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
He could, however, say to a bunch of golfers, right? You know, you guys ought to think about a Catholic campaign, why don't you reach out to Orono Parks Legacy? They could help you organize yourself and give you a tax deductible vehicle that you could use if you want to designate whatever you do for the benefit of this golf course.
Right.
That's how it would have to function.
Right, I mean, we have a 501c,
Yeah.
so I get it, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just wondering what they're doing, they're doing since they've started. Have they started any fundraising?
You know, I'll give an update when we get to the updates at the end about what we're doing with
Yeah,
pickleball,
Alright.
and that'll give you a pretty good
And
idea of
that's
how it's
all,
functioning.
that's all they're focused on?
Well, the Christmas tree lighting is through Orono Parks Legacy as well.
Okay,
I would say that Orono Parks Legacy did not do the fundraising.
I mean, it doesn't
more
stand for
of an
anything.
enabler,
I
okay?
know, it's a tough
Now,
job
the-
fundraising.
Yes, so I, on the Orono Parks Legacy, I might do fundraising, but that's because of me individually having a passion for whatever that project is. You were at the golf course shelter opening,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought you would be listening to what I said, because I did lay out the framework for, we at the golf course here have some big hurdles coming up over the next 5 to 10 years, and we as Orono Parks Legacy board are going to be looking to try to facilitate the fundraising of that.
The actual tax deduction isn't that attractive anymore, is it, when people contribute?
Well, you know what though, this is interesting because one of the things I learned in the pickleball fundraising is a lot of people want to donate from their IRA. And because they can transfer funds directly from their IRA into the bank account of Orono Parks Legacy,
Well,
they could do it tax-free, which I'm saying people do like to be able to use those funds when they want to contribute, and so having
But I mean,
Orono
they
Parks
don't
Legacy
get
makes it
digits
possible.
out of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, they do.
They do, if
Yep.
it's from an IRA,
Yep.
but otherwise not.
Nope.
No.
It depends, yeah.
Well,
We're not tax, we're
Yeah,
not
no.
giving tax advice here.
fair enough, but I'm just saying they
It's
couldn't,
about how you're.
I couldn't just write a check to, you know,
You,
some personal project I was interested in out of my
Checkbook?
401k. I couldn't just do that and consider it tax deductible. You know, there are requirements is what I'm saying
yeah,
for it.
it depends on the individual and
Yeah.
their bracket and their tax situation and
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
but I've had lots of people ask me, which, I mean, I was just surprised the number of people who said, I'm planning to get this out of my IRA. I'm planning, can you tell me how I'm gonna do this out of my IRA?
Yeah,
Because
well-
that's where they wanna get their money from.
Another tax strategy is to actually give stock, because if you have appreciated stock,
Yeah. Stock
then you can
increase.
give it at the market value without being taxed on the gains. So if you have stock that is appreciated to $10,000, you can give it and get a write-off for $10,000. If you actually sell the stock for $10,000 and then give the money, you have to pay the tax on the gain. So,
But again, you have to give it to an appropriate organization in order to get that benefit.
so anyways,
Can't you just
that's the tax.
But you know what,
Tax
that
quarter.
that
Tax
points
strategy quarter.
out part of the significance of Orono Parks Legacy, because you start fundraising, right? And you're dealing with corporations and big donors and little donors, and hopefully Orono Parks Legacy can say, okay, when you're talking to donors, this is what you need to think about. When they ask you, can I give it out of my 401k? So my point is that that's part of what.
Your tax band, don't ask.
Yeah, well,
That's
that's
right.
true. That's true.
Yes.
But my point is that Orono Parks Legacy helps us as volunteers trying to do fundraising to become aware of these vehicles as opportunities when you're out fundraising to say to people, hey, you might want to give this from your IRA, right? We could accept a contribution like that. So that's an example of where the experience of Orono Parks Legacy helps to fundraise.
I'd like to raise some money to buy a new car. Could I? Why not?
Look at that, I'm not a board
You can
member.
put it in from your IRA. So there must be rules for what projects Orono Parks Legacy Fund can fund. You just can't take my car in there. It has to be something that
Well, it has
matches
to be
It has a mission.
benefit the city.
the city.
Yeah.
That's because that's the
Not
mission of
Mike
Orono
Huddy.
Parks.
Well, that might help the city.
He's in the city, yeah. Allows them to
If
go to
if
the
you go to
parks.
Orono Parks Legacy webpage,
Yeah.
you will see its mission and vision statement, and that will tell you
What
you're looking
projects
for,
would qualify.
what kind of stuff.
But it should be the citizens who are deciding what project.
Well, yeah, they're not saying, hey, Orono, you're now going to do a project.
Yeah.
They're just funding a project that the Orono
Okay,
City Council has
that's good.
approved, yeah. They have no authority,
They have no authority.
no authority over this.
We have no authority.
Neither do we.
OPL doesn't have any authority. He's the only one with some authority
Yeah.
here, I guess. All right. Anything else you want to communicate to the city council and staff as far as priorities?
I would love to see something about playground.
Yeah, that was a miss. That was a good catch.
We had a discussion at one point too about disability accommodation at playgrounds too, so that's a part of the same discussion.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, they have one in Mound, that one that they just built.
Yeah, I read the article.
Yeah, you should go see it, I went and saw it, it's pretty
Which
cool.
one is it?
It's the one at Surfside.
Eli Hart.
Oh, yeah.
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 That was a good project.
Thanks.
And you said that's a mound?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Surfside Park.
Right next to Surfside, it's not far
But
from
it's
here.
for, yeah, it's just, what's the correct term for that?
ADA compliant.
ADA is so kids that can crawl around, only crawl or something like that, yeah.
Cool.
Because, you know, there's a big group of bocce ball players that come from the school that play at Hackberry, and they're I don't know what the term is, but they're special ed kids, and they play there regularly all summer.
This is not a recommendation, but it does strike me that as I've gone to some other parks because of playing pickleball in other areas, you see volleyball courts. And I don't really think about Orono Parks and think about volleyball courts, but you know, when you think about that kind of high school, post-high school, early adult age, you know, in terms of, what you say, do people come to a park? You got kids and they're gonna play softball, we all know you're going to the park. Kids come, they play soccer, you all know you're going to the park. But when you start thinking about active adults, and I'm not talking about the passive use, because obviously, you know, we all enjoy, you know, walking through our parks and, you know, just enjoying that sense. But active adults, I will continue to go on the record that I think for older adults and adults in general, for healthy lifestyles, need to be more active, and our parks should not just make available spaces for those things, but what we've learned through the pickleball fundraising is programs around that stuff. So, you know, if you're gonna have pickleball, then you're working with community ed to have leagues and, you know, drop-in times and, you know, for different age groups. So I would just encourage you, not necessarily for this list, but as you're looking at all of our parks and you look at other parks, ask yourself, in what ways do adults and older adults actively engage in our parks in physical activity?
It's funny that 2040 plan talks about our aging population quite a bit, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Like we've gotten as a community, just as like bell curve that keeps going up and up.
I was in Wayzata Well, I'm in Wayzata almost every day now playing pickleball because it's the only place that has pickleball courts. Val, yeah, they have 4 courts there. And the funny thing is that we usually have 24 people there every morning playing. And I ran into a couple who are from Maple Grove and they said, oh, we just opened 19 courts. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, why are you coming here? You know, but anyway, she said, every day they have over 100 people. Now Maple Grove's a big city, but they built 19 courts and they have over 100 people there every day playing. Yeah, and so when I say active, people are looking to be active. We just need to give them ways, and then, you know, I will say Wayzata kind of missed the boat. Their culture around pickleball there is you call up your 3 friends and you go play for an hour. And we're like, don't you want to mix? No, I and my friends here, we're just gonna play for an hour, right?
You know, I think you're playing at a different level than the average person.
Well, that's true, and so they'll kind of go on and on, but we don't see anybody at Wayzata ever drop in. Ever. Anybody, the entire summer. And so, again, I say it only because, and this was told to me, so these aren't my words, when you build whatever infrastructure to engage people, nobody cares about tennis courts, nobody cares about pickleball courts, nobody cares about volleyball courts. What they care is that you have programs to engage people as a community in being involved and getting out and spending time together as a community in those spaces. So I'm just gonna say we need to really, really think about that partnership with Orono Community Ed as we think about these questions and plan what kinds of activities we want more of. So not what parks do we want more of, what activities do we want more of, and who's successful in engaging people, and how are they doing it? How are they getting people there? Because I've seen courts that I swear would be sitting empty if our group weren't there every single morning wishing that they had 4 more courts, you know, so it's important.
For sure.
We don't really have a recreation department in
No,
Orono.
we're parks, not parks and
Yeah,
recreation.
that's right.
Mhm.
So some of the stuff that you talk about would kind of fit into that category. Not saying that we shouldn't have them, but it's a whole nother level of administration and goal setting and all those kinds of things that you're talking about.
But maybe recreation is what Orono Community Ed does. They have recreation programs. We have parks. We need to marry them a little bit better. You know, so that we're not doing the administration of that park, but we figure out how to get people using our parks by having organized events.
I'll just say at Taxpayers listening session, both times they asked for sand volleyball there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, anything else on this before we move on?
It's a good list. Plenty to do.
Okay, so turn it over, Taylor, to talk about, I just asked him, he's starting to dig into a tree management program for the city. And he's early on in it, but I thought just this was a good opportunity for him to just to kind of tell us how the beginning of that program is going.
Yep.
More to come, but
Yeah, so obviously I have a lot of experience with trees, but I am not a certified arborist, and I felt like it was very important to engage with a certified arborist to develop a comprehensive tree plan for the city of Orono. Over the past handful of years, we've used grant money to inventory our trees on the right-of-ways and in parks, which is extremely helpful. And so now I'm engaging with the Davie Resource Group to help develop a comprehensive tree management plan. So this is early stages. They just gave me this proposal, but things that will be involved in it are going to be obviously emerald ash borer mitigation plan. So with that data, we know where ash trees are are, and my team has been over the last couple weeks going out and rating those ash trees on their condition right now, knowing that they will continue to decline. But we wanted to, make sure the worst of the worst are, first up on the list, and those are going to be ones that are imminent danger to people or structures here in the city. So, a handful of trees throughout our parks, a lot along right-of-ways. And so this plan will help give us an understanding of our numbers and the cultivars that the trees are, and help develop a plan for how we are going to budget and execute the removal and ultimately the reestablishment of trees in our parks and right-of-ways and public entities. So, this is just kind of a visual, but using the data we've accumulated to create a plan. As you can see, history of emerald ash borer. Description of some methods we can use. There are injections we can use, but ultimately the condition of the ash trees right now and any chance of saving many of the trees, it's not a cost-effective plan for the city to go down that road. So we are going to focus on simply removal and then a huge plan for replacement. This will be an ongoing budget line in the CIP. As we get this comprehensive plan, we'll be able to kind of figure out what we can tackle at a time operationally. And a lot of, the reestablishment and takedown of the trees will need to be assisted with grant money. And Hennepin County, the DNR, have a ton of grants right now for reforestation and some bare root trees in springtime that we can take advantage of. To try to get as much progress as we can on getting trees reestablished in areas. But the arborists are going to give us recommendations based on location and based on what we want out of the trees in the location to select the right plantings. And it's going to be a variety of plants. It's not just going to be 2 species of trees. It's going to be a wide spectrum. So that we, for the people after all of us, they have a well-rounded canopy here in the city of Orono. And we're not dealing with these massive decline in species. And so with this contract, they'll be developing this plan, and then for the first year, I'll be able to, at an hourly rate, bring the arborists out to help out in the field with placement and diagnosis of certain things out in the field. So, having that professional backing is really important, because I know how emotional trees can get. And when they start coming down for reasons that are primarily safety, I just want to have that educated background to make sure that I'm making the proper decisions in each avenue. Planting, that'll be developed. How do we plant the tree? How do we water the tree? And how do we prune the tree? So the plan will develop a plan for each phase of this. There's also a software system that they provide, but ultimately with the great inventory that has been gathered over the years, I don't see that as a need. As long as we can effectively continue to keep data on removals and replantings, and continue to send a team out to score based on a 1 through 5 numbering system on the health of those trees.
Taylor, how does our plan differ from like a nature area, like Ryan Hill or Castle Point Park versus some of our other trees around the city? Like, is it the same plan? Is it different? Like, we're letting
So there will be components of that, but ultimately those are more naturalized areas. But I am looking into, the DNR does a great job with seedlings, and you can purchase thousands of seedlings for a relative amount. So if we see significant decline in those nature areas, there will be a plan for introducing young seedlings to maintain that healthy forest.
And that's all in the scope of this.
Correct. And this isn't very detailed because this is simply, they're giving me what would be in a plan,
Yeah.
and from here we get into the nuts and bolts, and also including the planning department for all of our lakeshore restrictions as well.
So, are we removing any trees in the nature area?
Will we? Not at this point in time, no. So.
Like a safety hazard or
Correct. Yes. The big safety ones, yes, we will address, but ultimately we'll kind of just let the forest do what it does.
Great. Yeah, I wasn't sure with the spreader on that. Like, do we need to proactively be removing trees to stop the spread? But that's
Too late.
It's
that's what I understand.
ultimately it's too late.
Yeah.
In that regard. Yeah. Yep. But areas of forest that we see major decline, that's where I want to go in and introduce, young seedlings. So
There'll be a spillover into private property. I mean, I don't know how that's ever gonna mesh here, but, thousands. I talked to the city council about it the last time they had a meeting. And, it's a huge problem.
it absolutely is.
Yeah, and there are people, private citizens here that have got issues on their property, they're not gonna be able to afford to take care of it.
Correct.
And I don't know what's gonna happen there, if the government's gonna,
I'm hoping at some point, the government comes in and gives assistance to them. At this point in time, I would love to provide those services to the residents, to help identify the problems with their trees and removal and replanting. But as far as funding and things like that, that's not something the city can necessarily take on at this point in time. Nor do we have the resources.
well, this is a great first step, I'm really happy to see that.
Absolutely. So, getting all that data over the past years is crucial, and now being able to get a document that'll help guide us through the process will be really, really important.
Excellent.
And then it's just, my team's, responsibility for, hey, once we go through all this work, let's keep that tree alive, and keep making progress.
Okay. Excellent.
Any questions on that? Further questions? So.
I'm sure it's better at identifying trees. There's a tree that's leaning in my property.
If the bark's
I can
going white-
identify it for you, but
I'll get a better photo.
If the bark's going white, it's actually, it's about dead, or it's falling over, whatever.
It's actually on my neighbor's property.
if it's your woodpecker's favorite thing, yeah.
All right, so next on the agenda, we had a meeting a couple weeks ago about the tree lighting. Not a ton to discuss, but it's happening this year. It's very similar to prior years, just incrementally. Every year we make incremental improvements to the site and to the programming, but for the most part, it's kind of the same. We have a date, and that is December 7th or something like that?
Yep, December 7th. We did adjust the start time just a little bit. We heard a lot of comments that waiting for Santa took too long. And Santa will arrive at 6 o'clock, so we wanted to just push that so that there's not quite that gap from beginning of the event to Santa arriving on fire truck.
You don't need to go through the whole thing, but I just want to say the other big change for this year is because we have the the pavilion. There'll be better use of that space up there and stuff like that. So
Can
we
you not
still will
put
have,
that metal tree up?
we will still unfortunately have. our
You wanna donate one to
Sunday
me?
metal tree, and we'll still have some tents,
Correct.
but we'll be able to utilize the shelters, which is great.
Yep, and I'm looking into a way to potentially put like canvas siding on the pavilion for that event, just to keep the wind out a little bit. So I'm exploring that. I don't know if it's financially a thing that we can tackle this year, but looking into that, and so, but that will certainly be a nice gathering area for that event as well. You know, a lot of it is the same, you know, trying to get donations and things, but really the one thing that we really want to bump up this year, and you know, our next Park Commission meeting, we can hopefully get some of your names on here. But we'll be going out to some local organizations like the Rotary and things, looking for community members that you know, can lend an hour of their time to help facilitate the event, whether it's from serving hot cocoa or being a beverage runner, just to make sure that things run smoothly, and then also, you know, helping clean up at the end of the event and those sort of things. So, you know, through Kim is working on getting some people, but also through Rotary and local associations, just trying to get as many volunteers as we can to have a really well executed event that runs smoothly and goes off with as few pitches as possible.
The Lions bring a lot of people. They have their own kind of thing going on. This is in addition to what the Lions' responsibilities are. And what
Correct.
they can help with. In the past, unfortunately, it's fallen on Kim and her family and Josh and his family at the end of the night. They're the only ones left cleaning up and that kind of stuff. And so we're trying to really make a better effort this year to get people committed to do it, for these roles and stuff. So I don't know if you know, his son is in kindergarten. He's not going to be much of a help.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, he'll probably consume a lot too. So, but yeah, just you know, keep that in the forefront. If you have any people or associations in mind, please reach out to me, and
We'll bring this up again at the November meeting. People can sign up then. Anything else on the tree lighting event? Hey.
But Janie, I do want to get rid of that metal tree.
They must have spent 100, 200 hours putting that thing together.
All right, so any other updates you have?
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of inform you guys on, you know, where we're at right now. Ultimately, just getting everything prepped for winter. We'll be starting the irrigation blowouts on lawns here probably the week of the 21st of October, unless I see 80s for 3 more weeks, which who would complain about that? As well as working on getting all of our docks out of the water and you know, orchestrating all of that. All new to me, where they go, those sort of things. So just a lot of planning involved in that, making sure we know where things are before we need them. It is a huge part of my time right now. And then, you know, just working towards, you know, all the facility things, cleaning windows, getting our fall services, getting some contractors in here to execute, make sure that things are going to be up and running. When the cold comes, we can stay warm inside. So those are kind of our big operational things right now. And you know, like I said earlier, it's great to have a team, but we're all new, so we're all kind of learning through these processes at the same time. But I think with that, we'll bring a lot of new ideas and hopefully ways we can be more efficient with you know, our fall transitions, and we'll definitely find more ways to improve next spring when we put things back as well. So.
Sandy, do you want to talk about pickleball?
I can, and had I been a little bit better prepared, I would have sent you a link to a presentation that we put together for the Orono Parks Legacy. But I'll just do some talking points from it. So last time I was here, I talked about phase one of our fundraising, which was about developing talking points and what you would call your pitch deck, which is going out to sponsors and talking about the importance of pickleball and what we're planning to do and all of that, and coming up with our sponsorship program. So that's what we talked about last time. Phase two is really kicking off the fundraising itself. So we've had two major events. We had started out as a booth at James J. Hill Days that turned into them giving us the entire Wayzata Depot parking lot to have a booth and two pickleball nets set up, to organizing competitions among different businesses, different teams, to having our Westlakes Pickleball Club members dress up in inflatable costumes and play games to kind of entertain. So it was quite the event. I learned after the fact that this year there were 80,000 attendees at James J. Hill Days.
It was packed.
The chamber was, oh, by the way, you know how they figured that out?
Hmm?
Do you know how they figure out how many people are there? It's the garbage. They weigh the garbage.
Really?
Yeah. I learned this from Caroline Melber, that, because whoever does the garbage service has done many ticketed events, and then they weigh the garbage at the ticketed events, and they know. Yeah, so, so they asked me
Anybody like to see
8,000.
Sandy in that?
There it is. That's me in a roll costume. So it was a lot of fun, but to give you some idea, just during that, we had 150 people play pickleball on the courts over the course of a day and a half. How do I know how many? Well, they all had signed releases. So everybody had a signed release form, so we knew how many people. And they were all ages. We even had a couple who just got married who were, for whatever reason, at the depot taking pictures, and this married couple came out in their wedding dress and tuxedo and played pickleball. So it was a lot of fun. We had 19 volunteers that worked between the booth and getting prizes and running the various events we had going on and the booth, set up and take down about 200 hours of volunteer time that went into doing James J. Hill. They were so excited about it that they ended up reaching out to Fox News Live. And so we had a segment on Fox News Live about what we call the Battle of the Paddles. So that was fun. We actually had people who came from North St. Paul. I can't remember which suburb it was, because they saw our clip on the TV news, and so that's why they came to James J. Hill. So that was kind of cool. So anyway, but yeah, the people who participated played range from age 15 to over 70. We didn't ask people their age, but anyway, and we had 10 different teams with 45 players who played in the actual competition. And all of this, for us, was to raise visibility of the project, right? Give the project a name. In the booth, we had the video of the update we had done at the Orono City Council meeting running. We had brochures with our pledge forms that we handed out to people who were interested. Anyway, and we collected some donations there. We have actually been asked to run the event every year now, so we'll see how that goes. Be careful what you wish for. That was followed by actually the Monday after, so Saturday and Sunday we did James J. Hill, and then the following Tuesday we were at Wayzata Country Club. So two of the members sponsored us to have a pickleball social fundraising event there, and we had over 70 people attend that, so it was about 4 hours long. and we raised over $8,500 during that event. So to date, we've had a few expenses, not a lot. We had a fee for the booth and some small things, but we've raised about $15,800, and that is somewhere between 80 and 90 different people who have contributed. So this was the individual contributors, right? These are not our corporate sponsors. But what we wanted to do was do our kickoff, practice our pitch, get some visibility out there, and have people excited and engaged who are part of the pickleball community. And so now we will start going out to businesses in the next couple of weeks, looking for pledges. And so our first goal is to get to we think of $50,000 as our first milestone, because that's a way that now we're going out with, greater credibility as we're looking for bigger pledges. So that's kind of how it's going. It's been fun. It's been a lot of work, and we obviously have a lot of work to do yet. But as we walked around in our costumes to some of the other booths, a lot of people showed a lot of interest in pledging us. So now we're going to follow up with those businesses and see if we can't get their sponsorships. And so if you ask me, when are you going to have $800,000? I'm not going to guess at this point. I think the important thing is that, something of the size is going to take some time. But I think as we gain momentum and more corporate sponsors, and honestly, being a part of James J. Hill is a way to give back to a community and then look to that community to support what you're trying to achieve. So this will be a test of what the value of being at that event was. But we certainly got a lot of kudos from the chamber. They were thrilled with the event, and it went really well. And they were amazed at the number of volunteers we had. But I think that's a testament to people who, love the sport, are very invested in seeing this happen, and are going to participate to be a part of it. So hopefully the corporate part will go well over the next few weeks as well. But I think that's not bad, just a couple weeks out of the chute. Yeah. So, okay, that's all I have.
Thanks for the update.
Unless there's any questions.
Questions? No? Wonderful. Other updates from anyone? I don't have anything.
I appreciate what Sandy said at the beginning of the meeting. Let's take a breath. I think Josh came in and was drinking from a fire hose. He had a lot of turnover immediately. Obviously, you're drinking from a fire hose too, but I really appreciate how receptive you've been. I was just pulled out an old thing here. We started just walking through the calendar of when we're meeting, what do we need to do at each meeting to make sure we're being as effective with our time, and how does that align with city council, and looking at how do we look at even who adopts a park, and start tracking some of that. What are our parks? What are in our parks? So I couldn't echo what you said more. I appreciate you bringing that up. Of let's take a step back and make sure we're doing the right things at the right time with the right people in the right parks. And so I appreciate you being able to do that, and glad that we have that alignment. So excited.
Oh, and speaking of you, and I didn't mention this, so there is a grant that's due in November for the Minnesota something on healthy aging, which what's a better resource for healthy aging than getting your seniors active? And yeah, I'm happy to help. I'm no expert when it comes to applying for grants and what they're really looking for, but I do think that the messaging and the programmatics piece of this is really, really important.
Yep.
So depending on how the questions are asked, I can help a lot with that. So happy to meet whenever you want to and when you're ready to, or review anything you've got, so just let me know.
Yep, sounds great. Sounds great.
We meet on the 4th of November up at the dais, and if you have any suggestions for topics, send them to myself or Taylor.
We don't meet on Mondays anymore, right? It's the 5th, right?
I think this is because of Election Day, I think
Oh,
it's
that's
on
right.
Monday.
We kept.
Yeah, that one
Got
was
it.
every day.
Which,
Yep, it's on the one that you're at.
It says it on the city website,
Yeah.
but that one's moved to Monday.
yeah.
Great.
Well, so in applying for a grant.
Yep.
I think is there a formal approval process with the city council when we actually submit it, right? So,
Typically, yeah.
yeah, so you need to think a little bit about the timing of that, because if things like due like November, I don't know, 4th or November something, I can't remember the date. But we kind of got to back up from there, because we won't meet, it'll be too late by the time we meet.
Yep.
So, and I don't know,
I think,
that this group needs to
it's
be
a
involved.
smaller grant program, right?
Yeah, no, it's not like $800,000,
Yeah,
it's more like 50.
We've already, voiced our support for the project and to get grants, and so I don't think
Yeah.
we need to.
But you need
Yeah,
to think
I
about
do.
what does the
Yep.
city have to do so that we can back up from them so we don't miss that deadline. So,
Sounds good.
but obviously that could be a part of the agenda to get an update on what happened with completing the grant, so we know. And then the tree lighting, the fundraising, who is doing the fundraising? Is Jan helping with it again?
To the extent that you can. I think you missed, she had a fall, so she's got some medical stuff, I think that just happened, so. Yeah. All right.
Anything else? Well, thank you all. First meeting. I'll only get better, I promise.
If you want to get together sometime for a meeting, have a cup of coffee and talk, because we're on a couple of things.
Lake access.
Access, there's.
We should probably also talk about
Park.
2025 schedule too, for the next meeting.
Sure.
I don't know if we meet in January, February, March.
I've been looking all over.
Yeah, at least talk about the schedule.
Didn't know that.